So we're going to start off by looking at images, and along the way we'll be looking at file type sizes and talk about how we use images in HTML. Now, the thing about images is it's a bit different to, for example, Word. If you want to create Word documents, you can use Word from Microsoft, but images can be created in a whole bunch of different software packages. Paint is the cheap, well, it's not cheap, it's free one on Windows and has been for many versions. There are professional expensive packages, some of the old ones here, CorelDRAW, Fireworks. Photoshop is obviously the most popular sort of photo imaging processing software that's available out there. Loads and loads of different choices. But the easiest thing to do, and this is software that's available on most machines. So in the examples that we're going to just have a look at in a minute, we're just going to use Paint because it's available everywhere. So here's a copy of Paint that I've got running on Windows 10, and I've got an image loaded in of a laptop on a table. So let's just go File Save, and if I go File Save, I'll use File Save As, and you can see we've got lots of options here for the different formats that we can save the image in. So for example, let's save it as a JPEG image. And what I can do is I'm going to save it in this location here, and I'm going to call it Home Office, and it's going to be a JPEG file. So I just click Save, like that. And you can see here it is. Here's my Home Office file saved into the folder. But not only are there lots of different ways to edit and produce images, but it turns out it's more complicated than that. You can actually have images in lots of different file formats. So you can see some of the ones we've got here. There's PNG, JPEG, BMP, GIF. So let's save it in a variety of these different formats. So I'm going to save it as a PNG. I'll save it in the same location, use the same name, save, and I'll do it again. I'll save as a BMP file, save, and then I'll save as a GIF. Save. And you can see it's giving me a little warning message here, because the thing about GIFs is that they don't actually save images using the full ranges of colours that are available. I'll talk about that in a minute. So I'm just going to click OK. So now if we go back here, you can see I've got the file 4 times, and you can see the file type is over here indicated in the 3rd column. Now, in latest versions of Windows and on the Mac, you can't actually see the extension. If you remember, the extension is a series of characters that comes after the dot that indicates what file type the files are. So even though these look as if they all have exactly the same name, they've actually got different names. That's homeoffice.jpg, that's homeoffice.png, that's homeoffice.bmp, and that's homeoffice.gif. Now, one of the things just to have a quick notice of here is in the this 4th column, you can see, look at the different sizes of the file. You can see that when we save it as a BMP file, it takes up much more space than if we were to save it as a JPEG or a GIF file. And then the PNG file is the 2nd largest one, just here. Now, I think I can, if I can remember how to do this, just click on View, Options. If I go into Options, one of the things I can actually do here is I can actually say, so somewhere in here, you can see the default option says hide extensions for known file types. So if I just turn that off and click Apply and OK, there you can see all the files with the full file name. So when it comes to actually saving a file, you can see that we have different file types. And often the most common place that you'll set the file type is in the dialog box that pops up when you say save this file. And there'll be a sort of drop-down list. If you look at the 2nd drop-down list here, which says save as type, for example, you can see it's offering us all the different types of files. With images, we get lots and lots of choices, and you saw some of those: JPEG, GIF, PNG files, things like that. What we need to remember is that often a product produces files that are in a particular file types. So we know that Word, for example, produces Word file types, Excel produces Excel file types, similarly Access. But Paint and other image products, other image bits of software can produce GIF files, JPEG files, BMP files, things like that. So when Word produces Word format files, what it's actually doing is it's embedding lots of special characters in there for the formatting and the styling. So that's why we tend not to use Word to produce plain text files. It's not very good at producing plain text files. That's why, for example, on this course, we're advocating using Notepad++, but there are lots of other things available. And just to reiterate, it's that extension, the 3 characters that come after the dot, which indicates the type of the file. That's added in by the software, but as we've seen, it may be hidden by the operating system. One tip here, by the way, is when you are saving your file in these introductory exercises, don't put a space in. So you might be tempted to call your file sort of my space file name. Don't do that for the moment, and we'll talk about why it can create problems later on. But just for the moment, for these simple things, simple exercises that we're doing in HTML, don't put the space in. So there are lots of choices about how to save image files. What is it that actually distinguishes all these different types of files? What's the difference between a BMP and a GIF and a JPEG and things like that? Well, there's a number of different characteristics that we can look at. Some of those file types support compression. And what that's all about is, can a mathematical algorithm be run over the image so that the image can be compressed, it can be made smaller. We can hide some of the complexity of the image using mathematical algorithms. Now, those compression algorithms typically fall into 2 types. There are lossy algorithms and there are lossless algorithms. And lossy algorithms are the ones where, when we look at the image, what we realise, in fact, we could actually throw some of the image away and it won't matter. The eye won't be able to perceive the fact that you've thrown some of the image away. Now, sometimes you might accidentally throw too much image away, and that's too much of the image away, and that's when you get that kind of blocking effect. But if it's done properly, then you can compress a file by throwing imagery away, throwing some of that image away. Lossless information is where you keep everything. So you crunch everything down using maths, but when you actually come back to use that image, that file, all the information is still retained. A quick example of this, for example, is in music. In audio files, we can use lossy compression because it turns out that if you can run a mathematical algorithm over a file, and what it can do is it can crunch that file down and you can hide and throw away lots of the background noise that the ear can't actually perceive. So MP3, for example, is an example of a lossy file format where you throw information away. Lossless files, well, you don't want to throw information away. You want to make sure that you can retain it. So, for example, lossless files are things like applications, apps, when you download them on your mobile phone. The file is crunched down, it loads onto your phone, and then it's decompressed and returned to its original state. We can't have a compression algorithm for software which throws information away which we can't then get back. So that's the first image characteristic, compression. You could have animation, for example, just something like that. This idea that there'll be movement inside the file type. You could have transparency. So obviously you can have a see-through background, or different parts of the image are see-through. Finally, there's a question. For some file formats, there has been an argument that because they're based on mathematical algorithms, and some mathematical algorithms can be patented, some people have suggested that you might actually have to pay to use these file types. It's not really an issue too much at the moment, but it has come up historically. There have been certain organisations that have gone, well, we actually own the patent on that algorithm. That algorithm is used in that file type, therefore we should have some money. So here's a table with those characteristics: compression, patent, supply, animation, transparency. And you can see here are some different file types: BMP, GIF, JPEG, and PNG. And you can see, for example, BMP files don't use compressions. That means they're typically bigger. GIF files, there have been some arguments about GIF and JPEG. There have been various points in the past where people have asserted patent rights over those different files. PNG is the most recent file format that's come out, and PNG was specifically engineered so that there wouldn't be any attempt at patent on the content of the algorithm of those files. So I'll just quickly whiz through these. GIF and JPEG, those were the original file formats used on the internet that's on the World Wide Web when the World Wide Web first started. GIF, very good at compressing a limited range of colours and actually showing those colours. So, for example, cartoons, things where there are like a limited palette set, for example, cartoons, logos, things like that. JPEG, as you can see, came out of the Joint Photographic Experts group, and it was much better at compressing a fuller range of colours, representing a fuller range of colours. So that's why you can see that JPEG is often used with photographs. Images where you're dealing with 30,000 colours or 100,000 different colours, different shades and aspects of colours. As I've indicated, PNG offers lots of the characteristics of GIF and JPEG, and it was designed to engineer a free graphics format. One of the problems with PNG, though, is because it is a more recent file format for images, earlier versions of browsers may have limited support for it. So, for example, amazingly, there are still people out there locked into versions of Internet Explorer earlier than 7, and so PNG files won't work on those browsers.